call maybe the, top 3 or 4 or 5 brokerages in the town you want to invest in. Talk to the lady or gentleman that's at the front desk and say who in the office is an investor themselves and works with investors. That person at the front desk knows that entire office as good as anyone, and they will generally be able to point you into the agent that will best be able to suit you in that office. And maybe each 2 or 3 agents from those brokerages that will give you one, so you go talk to 2 or 3 of them, figure out which one's the best suit. I think that is a great approach for people who are looking for somebody that actually invests themselves and actually understands what we're trying to accomplish as investors. So there's kind of, step one of maybe finding that. I think that's the quickest, most efficient and best way to do it. Maybe even asking around to other investors, but a lot of times we don't know, the investors that we should know. And going to meetups, you never really know who's the real investors and who aren't. And right. And so I have found that to be very effective. But then beyond that, yeah, we do a lot of off-market stuff. And like I said, the connections that a really good agent has to that town, you'll never, generally speaking, you're not going to be able to replicate very easily. So doing a lot of off-market stuff is good. But a lot of times I've been very effective of calling these owners. A lot of times I know the owners and being able to sell the idea of doing some creative things. I sold the idea for this particular individual to do a land contract. I'm convinced that, it's just being able to sell the idea of doing things is very, very important. And as a new investor, it's very challenging to do that to these often sophisticated landlords that own these properties. And so having somebody in your corner that really understands what's going on, being the fact that I do this daily, is very effective. I have found for other people.
Yeah. And I just want to point out how rare, it's rare to have an investor agent who is doing what you're doing. So like first message is like, if you're working with somebody like Bradley, like you better latch onto him. Like that's not normal. Right. But the other thing is I love your advice, and I've shared that. I've borrowed that and shared with so many people that if you don't have a Bradley yet, if you don't have an agent who has experience, who invests themselves, then asking the office manager of a local agency or multiple agencies for the investor agent, that's an awesome tip. And as a way to kind of cut through some of the noise to find that person, not only who's an expert at finding deals, but also I found that a lot of the deals are sort of hidden. Like I know you know your market so well that sometimes everybody else looks at this property and they're like, oh, that's not a deal. But then that the zoning allows you to do something different, or maybe you could add another, you could split that into a duplex. There's just so many little nuances that a good local agent investor will know those nuances of deals. And that's where the deals are. Like they're very, very often, they're not on the surface a deal. You have to dig a little bit. And that's why like that local expertise is just irreplaceable. Like you need to find that person. Otherwise you're going to be missing a ton of opportunities.
For sure. And at the same time, I also tell people, because I do this a lot, I get especially people on the show. I encourage people, hey, reach out to me. If you're in a specific market, you don't have an agent, I'll make some phone calls. I'll dig into their actual stories, making sure that they're either investor or house hacker. And so I do a lot of that. I do a lot of these conversations, but I also tell people up front, because I used to do this before I was licensed, like you also have to put in some sweat equity too. Like you go hit the streets, you go find properties, pass them off to the agent maybe, or whatever, say, hey, I found this, and this, maybe potentials. They do some digging, right? Like a lot of times there's unrealistic expectations that maybe just the agent's just going to spend an enormous amount of hours finding the perfect deal for you without you doing anything. I think there's a little bit of a balance to that, right? Like you go doing a lot of driving for dollars, send them some connections, because again, like the ability to sell, we have such, just salesmen and people that are genuine in a community and area have such an ability to sell a vision and why things can get done that most people can't. For instance, I'm working with a house hacker right now. 203Ks can be challenging, right in this market. They can also be challenging to sell to many different people that are going to be a part of the loan, right? It's challenging to find a loan officer that's willing to do a renovation loan right now. It's it's even more challenging to find a contractor that's willing to go through the paperwork, right? So what I told them up front, I'm like, listen, you pick the market that, let's pick the market you want to go in. I am going to do a lot of selling beforehand to find a contractor